Hello and welcome to PPC Live, the podcast formerly known as PPC Chat Roundup. My name is Anu, founder of PPC Live. And if you're used to hearing from PPC experts about how to ensure that we're keeping up with the ever-changing landscape, don't worry, you are still in the right place. Instead of me relaying what the PPC experts are saying, I'm going to be bringing the PPC experts to you. Every week, I'm going to be speaking to a different PPC expert about their biggest F up, but also how they've turned things around. We'll share what has been disappointing and just what has been surprising, what really was the turnaround, and what's the thing that was the fix so that you know not to make the same mistakes. Today we're going to be speaking to the wonderful Ashna Makin, who talks about how she excluded a term that made sense. You'll hear about that and you're literally like, yeah, I do that as well. But you'll see how that excluding that term led to some quite bad performance, unexpected performance. So yeah, look out for those things. You never know. Sometimes best practices are not best practices after all when you look at your actually accounts. Let's go and speak to Ashley.
Hello, Ashna. Welcome to PPC Live, the podcast.
Hey.
Hi. So for those who don't know, Ashna Makin is a senior paid ad specialist with over 8 years experience working in over 150 different businesses, especially in North America, generating very high quality leads, especially using Google Ads and Facebook. She's worked with startups, agencies, in-house teams, managing campaigns over $2 million a month, even across industries from real estate, healthcare to photography and e-commerce. Always trying to learn the ins and outs of paid ads because she also loves to teach through one-on-one course training sessions and speaking, at marketing events. And I had the delight. I was telling her before this recording, I just got back from San Diego like an hour ago, where I went to see Ashna talk at Brighton SEO on their Hero Conf stage in San Diego. It was such a beautiful time. And I feel like they get spoiled with summer weather for much longer than the rest of us. It was still hot. It was still like a beach weather. You could go into the water. I did. I love that. It was really great to meet Ashna and see her talk. Fun fact. Oh Lord, I'm very, this podcast is about being brave. Even this fun fact, if I was her, I might not have shared this, but she's openly shared that, especially when she's in a new place, she has to have all the lights on. She has to have the TV on because it's like new, unfamiliar, which I totally understand. For me, it's more that I'll sleep with the lights off, but I'll wake up the next morning or sometimes even in the middle of the night and be all like, wait, where am I? Where am I? A little bit scared. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm in a different country. Yeah. And then I'll fall back to sleep. But oh, my Lord. So yeah, bless you that you do. So has that just been... When did you first figure it out that you're like, oh God, when you're in a new place?
Since childhood, I would say. Yeah, I would say since childhood, there was not a day that I was left alone because everybody in my family knew I'm scared as a kid. And as I mentioned, I'm almost turning 30 this December. Things haven't changed. I still have to sleep with all lights on if I'm in a new unknown place or I'm, alone. So that's not changing.
No, well, fair enough. Hey, we all have our quirks. I was saying there's some quirks that I'm not brave enough to even share because people be like, really, Anu? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so this is the stage for my guests to be brave about what they experience. But yeah, talking about brave, this is what this whole podcast is about. Really grateful that Ashna has been so willing to share, a mistake that she experienced early in her career. And how she turned it around. As you've heard, she has continued to, run millions of dollars of account, does training. So that era did not stop her in any way from succeeding in her career. So yeah, please take notes, please take lessons here. But without further ado, let's pass it over to Ashna. Ashna, what F up would you like to share with us today?
So yeah, as we were discussing, the biggest F up, and it was quite early in my career. I was very scared. I was like, and that was my first job into SEM analyst, just managing Google ads. Yeah, straight out of college, I had a sales job for a year, which I didn't want to continue. So I moved to digital, and I'm glad that I did that. So it was my first month or so with the agency, and I was managing a portfolio of somewhere around 70, 80 campaigns in a month. And dating and events happened to be one of the client vertical. I was reviewing the search terms, and I'm talking 7, 8 years back, wherein we had all the control possible. There was,
Sure.
there was no AI, there was no automation that
Right.
time. So
Right.
you had to, manually go check in reports, manually check search terms, locations, and all these other little things that make a big impact.
Mm.
I found a such term which was Meetup, which was a competitor to what my client was doing, and I happened to add that as negative, like learning from all the training that was given to me, all the best practices. You were supposed to isolate competitors, add them as negatives if needed, and stuff like that. And I did add that as negatives to around 7 to 8 campaigns in the same vertical. And when I come back, I think I had to go for a training or something again. And when I come back after a week, I get a note from my client success manager. That time I was just starting off, so I was an SEM analyst. I definitely had, people above me who were more responsible to answering the clients. And she went and she said, like, can you look into the campaign? The leads have suddenly dropped week over week, and this has never happened before. So it's
Right.
not seasonality. It's nothing to do with their offer or, I mean, it's just a evergreen campaign. It performs well all the time.
Yeah.
And I go and looking into, and I remember this. I was like, I was all happy, feeling good. Oh, I've had it this negative, everything's going to change. And
Yes.
campaign is not
Efficiency.
tracked. Yeah,
Yeah.
efficiency, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was talking efficiency at that time. And I was like, oh, pretty great job. And I was like, why didn't anybody catch it before me, right? Like, it's right. And when you open the search term report, it's right on the front. And turned out to be that was the reason I had not made any other changes to the campaign. So yeah, that was the biggest F up. And I ensure now I'm checking all the search terms that I'm adding twice, thrice,
Absolutely.
researching
Yeah.
more about it, and if they are closely related. Now with broads being all over, phrases also being all over.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that was the biggest effort that I did in the first year of my career.
Oh wow. Yeah. So that is something I think like that's the kind of mistake the whole terms of like putting down the wrong negatives or putting around, especially you said was a competitor
Yes, it was a
term.
competitive. Yeah, competitive
Yeah.
term.
So in everything, in all the sense of the word, it made sense to do that,
They do that.
right? But obviously, then we look at it and we turned out, okay, that's a mistake. That's not something should have been done. So who found it out? It was your manager that found out
I
the
found
error.
it out, and I
Oh,
immediately informed my manager saying that this is what I
okay,
have done. And she was very good. She's one of the great managers I've worked with. I worked with all
fantastic.
3 years when I was with that agency, and she went like, "It's okay." And I was like all sorry about it, feeling bad, scared because I was my first job into digital.
Yes,
So
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, I didn't know what to do next. But I was like, I'll own it up. And I think that's the best thing that I
yeah,
have done all through my career, be it into digital or sales or, any parts of my life that way. Is going to be owning it up. And
yeah.
I did inform her that this has happened. And she's like, oh, no worries. You can just remove it as a negative now. And I think immediately after 2, 3 days, we started that lead volume coming in back.
Okay.
So the impact was short lived. But yes, I had to inform my manager that this has happened.
Okay. So, and then looking back now as yourself, as your older, wiser self kind of thing, what would you say you feel like that you didn't do that you definitely now do that would have avoided that error?
I would say spending more time in understanding the client industry overall. Everybody has a checklist, everybody has a process in place. We do all that, and we keep perfecting it over a period of time.
Mm,
But I would say there are certain industries like this this is like events and like dating kind of a campaign wherein there is no brand loyalty as such. People are looking for different options. On the flip side, if it was like a doctor campaign where somebody wanted to see that specific doctor, yes, I think that would have made sense to add a competitor there as a negative over there. So my learning from that, and I follow that all through right now, is go deep into understanding the client vertical. How do people perform? Are they open to, other options? If yes, then I don't think it makes a difference. You can let them be, or you can actually target them as a separate ad group or a different campaign, and see how it goes from there, rather than just, being like, oh, this is what I was taught and I have to add it as a negative. No.
Yeah.
So, and I think that comes with experience. You start questioning things a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Yeah,
one.
it's a very great point as to the whole idea of like best practice.
Yes.
Everybody wants to give like the best practice to do. And on the surface, yes, best practice, adding a negative of a competitive term sounds like best practice. But time and time again, I think one of the biggest lessons I've talked about, even on this podcast with previous guests, but also that I talk to people that I've managed in the past, is like, don't just look at a best
Best
practice and
practices.
implement it
Exactly.
without really understanding how it will affect your
Exactly.
client's account,
Exactly.
your client's brand, and what to do. Best practices are changing with AI, especially best practices, what should be
Changing.
done,
Yeah.
are totally changing. What was the wrong strategy to do, let's say a couple of years ago, is now the good
Good
strategies what
strategy.
actually
Yeah,
you should do.
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
vice versa. What used
But
to work now
now
doesn't work.
doesn't work. Yes.
So we really, really need to be on top of that for sure. And what's your advice, let's say, to any folks out there who's like made this kind of mistake? They've just come back from, let's say, a holiday. They've come back from a conference, a training thing. They're all giddy, and then they see that they put a negative in place that has lost them sales. What's your advice to them?
So this is something that was, even I think we discussed in one of the talks at the conference, was never make changes on a Friday because you're gone for 2 days.
Yes.
So I would say never
Yes.
make those big, and especially changes that you're unsure about. Do not make
Yes.
them on a Friday, or if you're going on vacation and they will be left unmonitored for good 2-3 days. I mean, come on, when you start looking at these campaigns and spends, even 2 days is a lot of time for them to,
Yes.
have its bigger impact. So that's my piece of, and that's what I follow. I is like, if you email me after 12 noon on a Friday, I read it on Monday. Like, do not
Yeah.
do not think that I am going to action those things right now. No, like I'm not. And this is especially even to do with budgets. Like, I've been very careful managing daily budgets and all those things when automation and all those things were not into place. The budgets is one thing that can go off rail. Similar
So
situation like this.
easily.
Yes, so be very careful when you are doing all these changes. Do not make them. And if you have a backup or somebody's covering up for you, inform them you've done these changes so that they can follow through when you're away.
Okay. But even like in that state of the mistake has happened and they are right in the middle of it, this is not an advice for how do you avoid making the mistake. This is like, what's your advice for someone who the mistake has already happened? They're panicked. What would you tell them?
I would say whether be it if you are an agency and you have to let the client know, I would say inform them much like before, rather than trying to investigate, trying to cover it up and stuff like that. I think people overall in our industry are very good. They understand things like this happen, mistakes like this definitely happen, and people are understanding. I mean, I've been very lucky. I always luck out with great bosses, and
Nice.
she has been very, I mean, at that point in time, she was very, very supportive, and
Mm,
it didn't even feel like a big mistake at that time, but I quickly learned and I ensured that I never repeat it. So for anybody who's done a mistake, it's happened, I think just own it up and provide a clarification and a justification to the client. Or if you're working in-house, it's a bit more controlled because you're not answerable to a third party outside. I know in
mm,
agencies, like people will start asking for refunds and credits and like works on different
yeah.
agencies. So, I mean, but the best thing is to, inform the client or your manager that something like this has happened so that you can move to the next step rather than trying to find out what happened, why, and like, everybody getting involved in the same thing. It's better to be upfront about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So like now, like what's your one lesson just before we move on to talking about mistakes we see outside? What's your one like piece of advice you want to leave people with about that story in terms of like, you know, their mindset, what their mindset should be about mistakes and how to do things moving forward?
I would say take ownership. Like I always consider all the budgets and all the campaigns that I'm managing as if it was going from my bank account. So
Mm.
I definitely take ownership of all these campaigns, all these clients that I'm working on, and that naturally just helps me, be on the top of my to all the time. Like I'm looking at this campaign, even if process wise, I'm not supposed to look at them daily, sure, but I still ensure that if I've made something like this or I've made any changes, I go in and look into it daily. So one thing is take ownership of the account. It really makes a big difference, even whether it's a small ad account, even if you're managing big budgets, does not matter. But I think, yeah, taking ownership so that things like this are caught much before.
Absolutely. Care about the
Yes,
work
yes,
that you're
care
doing,
about the work.
yeah.
Exactly.
Make sure that it's not you're not like you don't just see it as a paycheck. Care about it.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's the point
Yeah.
of being in this
Like
industry.
at this point, I think I saw a post on LinkedIn from someone in our PPC community post about it. Like, are you a good media buyer or are you just good at, inefficiently managing other people's money? And I was like, this
Yeah.
makes so much of sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it really puts you into buckets. Like, which one do you fall into? That was a really
Yeah.
good post.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. Um, okay, now let's move on to our industry and maybe F ups that you've seen. You said that you've managed about $2 million,
Yeah.
dollars of advertising spend, of like monthly advertising spend. And I'm sure you've seen some like, oh my God, like, what is going on there? Whether it's AI automation or non-automation stuff,
Yeah.
what is like one or two of the most common like errors and
Uh,
F ups that you see like others advertisers making like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
before when you like get take over an account that the
Yes.
previous agency has run? What's the one common thing that you see?
So one thing I have definitely seen is a mismatch of landing pages. Like if the ad is talking about one specific product or service, the 404 landing page error has been very common, but now Google has got smart and your ads get disapproved, so you're covered in that
Straight
way.
away.
Landing page is not working, it's not loading. But I do see things like this happening, and the most annoying part is like I do not do a lot of e-commerce, but anybody who does e-commerce media buying, please send me to the product page that I have looked for. I do not want to go to a home page and find that perfect heels that I just saw. I want that product. Like I get so irritated. I am like, I wanted those pair of heels, and I'm not going to spend time finding that on the website. And for
Yeah.
lead gen businesses, the same thing, like I understand if you're testing a generic homepage versus a services page and stuff like that, but have something, related to the ad, like what the ad is talking about. So that is
Yeah.
definitely, and it's difficult to control with PMAX and, not having controls over headlines and all these things. But I think we should need to be like, your landing page still needs to be very relevant to what your
Yeah.
ad is showcasing. The other thing I always see is outdated promotions and ads. Like in 2026, as it begins, we might still see ads of 2025.
I
Then there are certain ads that come, and this is not common on Google, but on my Instagram, on my Facebook, is events that have ended, promotions that have ended. They're no longer available on the
yeah.
website. I'm like, no, like sometimes I'm like, I want to email their marketing team that you guys are still doing this.
Like
I think
who's
I've
done
done it a couple of
this?
times. I think I've reached out to somebody saying that, yeah, I just saw your ad. And it was a bigger brand. And I was sure there was, some agency or someone running. I don't think in-house would have, afforded to make the mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing I'd like be sure of. With all this AI and all, you cannot leave everything onto automation. You need to have that some kind of control, some kind of quality to keep all these things in mind. Yeah.
So sorry, but like for yourself as well, so like that kind of error, this kind of mistake, what kind of automation would you advise to put in place?
So I would say that this is where best practices and templates come into place, right?
Mm.
Like whenever you are uploading some new ads, or you are optimizing, you've taken over a new account and stuff like that. I have an exhaustive checklist that I check is, checking all these small things. Sometimes even there's problem with site links, call extensions, ad copies, as I mentioned. So always, there is just one way, have quality in your work whenever you are doing these ads and stuff like that. Ensure that they are written properly, and there's no other automation tool that I use or I can, vouch for when it comes to ad copies. I don't trust Google's
Okay.
AI and all those things now for ads. I like to have some control over messaging rather than just leaving it up on the platforms. Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to like ad copy, you stay away from doing
Yes,
it
I stay away
automated.
from using it. I have had campaigns wherein I tested AI on Max and like all these things, but really did not do well, and I was happy about it. I said, "Good." Like I did not want to give away
Yeah,
control in
yeah,
messaging for
yeah,
the PMax. I do not want to
yeah.
give away control because, like this is what I don't like about PMax is because you cannot pin the headline, so you have to say the same things in five different ways, and then when
Yeah.
it shows on Google, like even if I search something right now and I can say which is a PMax ad, which is a search ad, because I know like nobody in their senses would add combinations like this, but now it's PMax, you don't have control over your headlines, so those
No.
things are showing up.
Yeah, so we've got to be careful.
Got to, yeah.
You mentioned AI Max. Have you tested AI Max?
For a brief period, and it did not result good because the campaigns that I work with do not do good on such partner networks and all the other sites, which resulted in that kind of traffic. So I would say no. Like it was for a very brief
Mm,
period. Otherwise, I would love to share a case study or speak more about it. But yeah, I mean, I am waiting to hear from the industry. People who are actively testing and it's working for them. I would love to learn from them.
I don't think you should be so hopeful just yet.
Okay.
Like I keep in our PPC Live WhatsApp group,
Yeah.
there's this group that I created for like AI Max specifically. I was like, let's talk about how we're testing AI Max. And literally as recently as a few days ago, I threw in a message. I was like, guys, what are your results? And yeah, people are like, yeah, we've turned it off. We've reverted to DSA. We've done this. And it's just like, AI Max, unfortunately, guys, those who are listening, who are thinking of testing, it's still a bit of a mess. Maybe still wait a few more
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Or if you're testing and you're finding success, please let me know.
Yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
love to put a case study. I would love to publish you on PPC Live
Right.
for you to share those insights because people are looking. People are looking to
Okay.
find the opportunity of AI Max because yeah, we're in year of automation. We're the season of automation that is not going to die out.
Yeah.
Any
Correct.
soon, any soon. Um, I also wanted to, I always like asking my guests about because the theme of this podcast is to really bring out the things that we're not doing well so that even in terms of using AI, even in terms of like our roles, why do you feel it's important for us to talk about mistakes and errors?
So again, this someone had told me earlier in my career, and I love the people that I work with. Someone told me that like a good MBA school can teach you how to do things right, how to be a good leader, how to be a great example, but a very few MBA schools, or probably none, will teach you what not to do. That is something that you are going to learn only as you are in the role, only as you make those mistakes. So I think PPC overall as an industry, it's great. We see success stories, we see this is working, that is working, but we do not highlight the failures of it. And probably the mistake that I am making right now, somebody else is also making as a media buyer. Some third person is
Yeah,
making but nobody's talking about it, so you do not get to know. And I understand, there are reasons to it that we do not highlight the failures. But I think overall it would be good in as an industry if we spoke. And that's why when I was at the conference, I did mention about all the, small things that we think is small but who have a major impact overall on the campaigns. So I
yeah,
think it's good to highlight the failure on what's not working is
yeah.
also very important to know. So that's one thing I definitely, want more from this industry, from our great PPC, team to,
Experts,
you know,
yeah, to share about, and especially those who are still very much succeeding. And I had
right,
the very great pleasure of speaking to two of the biggest names in our industry, Nava Hopkins, Jill Saskin
right,
Gales.
yeah,
But like, yeah, once upon a time, they made they made like a targeting error, lost 50K in budget. Another
yeah,
time, they made a client error and in terms of like getting the wrong client on
Okay.
onboarding the wrong client, and that lost them, a few grand in
Yeah.
terms of like personal business. Like that was her money that she had to part with
Oh my.
at some point. So those are mistakes that have happened, and people
Yeah.
are still succeeding. And yeah, the more interesting ones, the better. That's what this
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
this podcast interesting, and people, learning the
Talk
big
about it.
lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big lessons to do. But also, how do you now for yourself? What's your main tactic or your strategy for preventing yourself from making mistakes for yourself? Like, what do you want to, like, anything that tips that for?
I think again, like following a process definitely, because no two campaigns are same. Even if they are in the same vertical, you need to be, very diligent when you are setting them up. You're optimizing, or you are just onboarding a new client. It's always good to follow a process and go by data. Of course, take decisions based on data, but also add some logic to it. Like because on none of these tracking platforms, let's be honest, are 100% true right now. There's so much going
Mm,
on that you cannot blindly trust just GA4 or either just one platform that you want to stick to. Look at like go further deep into it. And I think all these things come when you actually care. So care more.
yeah,
I think yeah, that's what I
yeah,
do. I care more about the campaigns that I work on, and so that I can avoid all these mistakes because I'm someone who takes mistakes very personally. So if I know I'm
yeah,
going to make it, it's going to stay with me. So
yeah.
it's one thing that I do is I avoid all those kind of situations later on.
Yeah, care more, be
Yeah.
patient,
Be
follow a process
yes.
kind
Follow.
of thing. Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes we get like bored with like, oh, the process,
Yeah.
it's like so
Yes.
long-winded, but actually that process is gonna help you
Yes.
avoid your mistakes,
Very
and it's
And
always
I've done
important
that,
for
right? Like we've all done that in the beginning of my career. For the first 2-3 years, I was like so process oriented. I even
yeah,
improved the process of the agency that I used to work with. I used
yeah,
to conduct training to, deliver that process to people. And then, as you get more confident, you start freelancing and all those things. And suddenly, you get into that gambling zone. Let me try this. Let me test it.
yeah,
Let me try this. And things can go out of hand. So it's always good to have some, some process and some structure to it. Always keep testing, no doubt. But I think there should be
yeah,
a process in testing also because when I take over some client accounts or I do consulting, I do find out that there were tests that are going on forever. Like nobody is taking
yeah.
like they're just never ending tests. Like a test is supposed to give you results, but there's no ending. There's no end to it. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tests should have like the amount of volume that you're hoping to get to, like amount of spend that you're supposed to get to, or timeline that you want to do, so that even if the volume is not great and you're like, okay, that could actually be your results. The fact that there is no volume in this area because we've let this test for 3 months and nothing is happening.
happen.
Don't make a test
Yeah,
run
exactly.
indefinitely. Make sure you're getting a learning
Learn
from
it.
it,
Yes.
and yeah, you're getting
I mean, there
something
are
from
certain
it.
tests like when I tested value-based bidding, it went for
Mm,
good 6 months, but it wasn't like like test it and do nothing about it. We were frequently making changes,
yeah,
and there were tests within tests happening. So it was
yeah,
so yeah, some tests like value-based bidding specifically is going to last longer, but
mm,
yeah, like keep an eye on it. Keep a deadline kind of a thing that this is when you need to pull back
yeah,
things. So yeah, as far
yeah.
as you're caring about it and somebody's watching it, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, that has been such a great chat. I think we've gotten so much learnings from this, Ashna. So thank you so much for sharing your fantastic story, your experience, what you're experiencing in terms of what you see from other advertisers, and how you continue to succeed in our industry.
Yeah.
Now, our last question before we wrap up is like a totally fun, non-PPC ish, tactic question.
Yeah.
If your PPC career were a movie, what would be the title?
I think it would be answer the universe because that's what
Okay,
you keep doing, If you're
okay,
just answering clients, you're just answering, if you're working in house, you're answering the stakeholders, you're answering the sales team.
yeah,
And, you're just answering everybody, things which are probably not in your control, right? Like these
yeah,
platform keeps on they keep on updating that stuff. They keep on making changes.
mm,
Again, that's not in our hands, but we have to answer our, clients and stuff like that. So, and I think like even on the other end, just keep answering people all the time. Well, why this went wrong? Why leads are down? Why this is up?
Yeah.
Keep
Keep
answering these.
communicating. Keep
Keep
communicating.
communicating.
Yeah. Out to the universe. Keep
Universe.
communicating.
Answer the universe.
That's a fantastic note to leave us off. But yeah,
And when you make mistakes, it's like gone girl. Like
yeah. Yes, I got girl. Oh my God, Gone
got
Girl.
it,
That
girl.
is a movie that
Yeah.
kind of traumatized me.
Yes.
But I never knew who I was getting traumatized by. I was
Yeah.
like, is it the guy? Is it the girl? Is it Gone Girl? That's
Yeah.
that's an interesting one. Anyway, on that fantastic note, thank you, Ashna, so much for being a guest on this podcast, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for
And
having me.
my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ashna, for sharing that very honest and transparent experience. Yeah, remember, best practices are changing and you've got to really know what's going to work for you. Test things out and see how to manipulate, the suggestion to make sure it works. And you check your data to make sure that it works. So yeah, for all the information and the full transcript of that fantastic conversation, go to podcast.ppc.live. PPC Live event update. Of course, we've got one coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've got 3 books from Kirk Williams, who wrote a book about really like understanding, paid search. And this is it right here. Go right here. Ponderings of a PPC Professional by Kirk Williams, revised and expanded, something that's latest, and it's lessons that will last through time. So yeah, maybe you can see even some of the description here. It's thoughts of things that will make sense no matter what AI updates come out in the next few years. So I really think, if you come to a PPC Live event, you will. No, I really think you will definitely get people one of those books. The first 40 or 50 people will get a book. So yeah, make sure you're one of those people that gets a book by going to ppc.live for our next PPC Live event. That's October the 22nd. So yeah, please go and check it out. Before I leave you, I'm also delighted to share that I am going to be taking on coaching clients. I am taking on coaching clients. I'm not going to be. I am taking on coaching clients for PPC mindset coaching to just help people to understand what it will take from them, uniquely from them, to exceed and to excel and to go beyond where they are if they feel that they're a bit stuck. So really happy to help you discuss that. If you just go to the marketinganu.com, you'll find out details of being able to book my time. You'll get one free session, and then we'll look at what the payment plan will be depending on what you can afford and depending on, how much time of my time that you need. So yeah, please would love to hear from you if you need my help on the marketinganu.com. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed the show and I look forward to bringing more PPC F-ups and triumphs next week. Thank you. Bye.